Please, give me some water. I felt like I was in a nightmare, unable to believe the scene before my eyes. My 5-year-old granddaughter, emaciated and frail, was chained to a doghouse. Seeing her reach out for water again, I snapped back to reality. I need to give her water right away. However, someone knocked the water out of my hand as I tried to offer it. Don't you dare give her any. My husband, with a face like the devil himself, then went to the storage shed and came back with a saw. I screamed, my blood running cold. Mom! It's a boy. My son Christopher called me, his voice brimming with joy as he shared the news. I wholeheartedly congratulated him. Christopher lived with his wife Selena and their 5-year-old daughter Ava about a 2-hour flight away from us. What did you name the baby? Ian. I want to raise him to be a strong boy. It seemed my son already had plans for raising his child. Do you want to talk to your father? No, I'll pass. Talk to you later. Despite reaching out, my son hurriedly ended the call when I suggested passing the phone to his father. Christopher had always been uncomfortable around his father. I had a feeling that's why he moved so far away when he got married. My husband was a former carpenter, a stubborn and unyielding man. I enjoyed supporting him and making baked potatoes for him and our son. They were a simple family who appreciated my baked potatoes. When Christopher decided to get married, he brought home a woman named Selena who seemed rather cold. Even when I spoke to her cheerfully, she would only respond with a curt, "I see." I remember my husband looking displeased beside me. Just as I was worrying about how we'd get along with her, Christopher and Selena moved far away right after getting married. It's lonely when children leave the nest. I wonder if that soft Christopher can manage living away from home. My husband spoke like this, but deep down, he was worried about Christopher. We were in our mid-60s, supposed to be spending a peaceful retirement together, when something unexpected happened. One day, we received a shocking phone call from our son. Ava's going to be hospitalized, so I need a significant amount of money. Mom, can you help out? Oh my, that's terrible. But don't you have any savings? Well, we tend to spend money as soon as we have it. I was taken aback by Christopher's response, but I asked how much they needed. For now, $100,000. The amount was so high, I was speechless. Please, Mom. Can't you think of it as for your cute granddaughter? Come on. As I struggled to respond, my husband, who had been listening on speakerphone nearby, suddenly said, "Let's lend it to them. I have savings from when I was working. We have our field, and we can get by on just our pension." He spoke loudly enough for our son to hear. "Thanks, Dad." Christopher's voice suddenly became cheerful, and my husband nodded silently. I had sensed that our son found his father difficult to deal with, but it was still nice to know he relied on us. Looking at my husband's somewhat satisfied expression, I felt he probably felt the same way. At first, we lent them money out of parental love, but Christopher started asking for more, claiming it was for treatment time and time again. Wasn't it just last month? Well, medicine and stuff cost quite a bit. What exactly is Ava sick with? We'd like to visit her. Ava has a rare disease, and only parents are allowed to visit. Anyway, please wire $30,000. He hung up abruptly with an unnatural excuse, making me think something's fishy. This isn't right. This went on for a year, and I finally reached my limit. I decided to call my son to refuse any further requests. However, not only did Christopher not answer my calls, but he also ignored all my messages. Unable to sit still any longer, I decided to consult with my husband. I think something's wrong with Christopher. I see. Well, seeing is believing. Let's go there ourselves. We took a 2-hour flight to visit their home, only to be confronted with a shocking sight. Their house was in a secluded alley with little foot traffic. We rang the doorbell, but no one came out. As we waited, I glanced towards the garden. There was a doghouse in the small yard, so I wondered what kind of dog they had and peeked inside. Please, give me some water. What? Ava. What are you doing in there? To my shock, my emaciated granddaughter was chained to the doghouse. I was so stunned I couldn't speak. She had a red collar around her thin neck, like one for a dog, with the chain wrapped around a tree near the doghouse. She reached out to us with vacant eyes, not seeming to recognize who we were. Please, some water. Her words snapped me back to reality, and I grabbed a water bowl that had been placed out of her reach. However, just as I was about to give Ava water, someone knocked it out of my hand. Don't you dare give her any. What? What are you saying? Just wait here for a moment. My husband then went into a nearby storage shed and started rummaging around for something. When he came back, he was holding a saw. Wait. What are you going to do? Don't move. I screamed as my husband raised the saw towards our granddaughter. However, he didn't even look at Ava and started cutting down the tree she was chained to. Being a former carpenter, he felled the tree in less than 5 minutes. He quickly removed the lead attached to Ava and put his hand on her forehead. As I thought, she's on the verge of heatstroke. No wonder in this heat. Oh, I was so scared. But we need to give her water quickly. Calm down. Were you planning to give her that dirty water? I looked at the water that had been knocked from my hand and realized with a start. The water I had instinctively tried to give my granddaughter had been left outside for days. It was certainly not fit for human consumption. Although I had been upset, I felt ashamed for not being able to make a calm judgment. Anyway, let's move her to a cool place. We need somewhere shaded. In that case, I have the spare key Christopher gave us. Some time ago, our son had sent us a spare key in case of emergencies. Of course, he probably never thought we'd come all this way without notice. We opened the front door of our son's house, turned on the air conditioning, moved Ava to a cool room, and immediately called an ambulance. What in the world is going on here? I don't know. But one thing's for sure, Christopher has been deceiving us. As we watched our granddaughter lying in the hospital bed after being transported and treated, my husband's fists were shaking. Of course, I too was burning with anger at the betrayal by our son and his wife. A few hours later, Ava's complexion had improved significantly after receiving IN4. After confirming her recovery, we decided to hear her story. At first, our granddaughter was hesitant to speak, but when I gently said, "Don't worry, we'll protect you," she looked up. The words that came out of her mouth left us stunned. "How terrible! I can't forgive him, even if he is my son. This calls for some serious punishment." Seeing our faces contorted with anger, our granddaughter looked sad. "I'm sorry. It's my fault." "What are you saying?" "It's okay. We'll definitely protect you." When I gently stroked her head, perhaps feeling human affection for the first time, tears welled up in our granddaughter's eyes. After that, we returned to Christopher's house, gathered evidence of their misdeeds, and began preparing for retribution. As we thoroughly searched the rooms while waiting for their return, we heard Christopher's voice. "Ah, that was fun. I wish we could have played more." Unaware of the hell that awaited them at home, he was laughing carefreely with his wife. Then we heard the sound of keys in the front door lock. "Ha! Didn't we lock up? I'm sure I checked before we left." He entered the house with a puzzled voice, carrying their son Ian. Then he noticed us in the living room. "Whoa! You scared me. Dad, Mom, why are you here? We got worried when we couldn't reach you, so we came to check on you. More importantly, what's the meaning of that in the garden?" Christopher's face showed a moment of panic at my husband's question, but he quickly feigned ignorance, saying, "What are you talking about?" However, when Selena, who had gone to check the garden, shouted, "Christopher, Ava is gone," he couldn't maintain his act. "She was taken to the hospital for heatstroke. They say she'll be admitted for a while." "Oh, is that so? That's terrible. How can you talk about this like it's someone else's problem? You did this to her, didn't you?" When my husband berated our son for showing no concern for his daughter, Christopher cowered. After that, Christopher and Selena were made to sit formally before us and explain what had happened. Selena seemed dissatisfied, pouting while holding the sleeping Ian. "I can't believe you told such a big lie about Ava being hospitalized." I slammed down on the table in front of them an amusement park brochure and what appeared to be a handwritten itinerary by Selena. These were things we had found while searching their house. Moreover, they had bags full of things bought at the amusement park. Anyone could see where they had been. "So you three went to the amusement park alone. Why did you leave Ava behind?" "Well, because of the entrance fee." My son mumbled quickly, and I glared at him with intimidating eyes. Children under 3 get in free at the amusement park. 1-year-old Ian wouldn't cost anything, but taking 5-year-old Ava would increase the expenses, right? What nonsense are you talking about? What happened to the money we lent you? Christopher remained silent at my husband's question, just fidgeting with his fingers as if trying to escape reality. As I watched our hopeless son and daughter-in-law, I remembered what our granddaughter had told us at the hospital. Ava had said sadly, Daddy and Mommy said I'm an unwanted child. Our son had always been a bit weak-willed and timid, often staying close to me as a child because he was afraid of his stern father. However, according to Ava, Christopher had said, "I'm going to raise a strong boy like Dad." Perhaps he had admired my husband in some way. But when their first child turned out to be a girl instead of the ideal boy they wanted to raise, they became disappointed and started treating Ava poorly. Ava told us, her voice trembling, "It's because I'm a girl. Daddy and Mommy only wanted a boy." I was shocked to learn they had been saying such terrible things to her regularly. Seeing how we doted on Ava, they decided to take advantage of us. They lied about Ava being hospitalized to swindle money from us. After Ian was born, the mistreatment of Ava intensified. Christopher, hiding his weakness by acting arrogantly towards Ava, manipulated her to obey him. As a result, Ava became a daughter he could control, and our son's pride only grew. We were planning to make Ava do housework and get a part-time job when she grew up, so we could get money from her. You know, even students can work part-time, right? I'm appalled. What do you think your daughter is? We're feeding her, so what's the problem? Besides, she was an unwanted child. She should be grateful we're letting her live. Unable to contain my anger, I slammed the nearby table, but Christopher just grinned as if he didn't care. When we were going to the amusement park, Ava was being noisy about not wanting to be left behind, so we chained her to the doghouse. Who cares if she gets heat stroke? I understand what you're trying to say. As your parent, I will make sure you take responsibility for your mistakes. I could feel my parental feelings towards them gradually cooling. I realized that no matter what we said, they wouldn't reflect on their actions. First, you'll repay the total amount of $130,000 we lent you in full. What? Don't be ridiculous. We've already spent it. How can we return it? That's our line. We have a pretty good idea, but what did you spend the money on? While waiting for our son and his wife, we had observed their clothing and belongings. Their closet was full of flashy shirts, bags, and shoes with logos that even we could tell were luxury brands. Even the clothes and accessories they were wearing now were all visibly expensive items. They were probably wearing these high-priced items to protect their petty pride. Let me confirm one more time. Ava was in danger of dying from heat stroke. You knew this and still went out. So what? I see. There's no need to talk to you anymore. We've already called the police, so you can reflect on your actions there. What? How could you do this to us? Our son and his wife, apparently not wanting to make a big deal out of it, suddenly changed their expressions. Then they both sat formally in front of us. Okay, we'll find a way to return the money somehow, so please don't tell the police. It's only natural to return what you borrowed, isn't it? I completely rejected Christopher's plea without even listening to his excuses. My husband felt exactly the same way, so he just glared at them with his arms crossed, keeping his mouth shut. Christopher and Selena started to panic at our attitude. We really regret it. We were wrong. Can't you let us off just this once? It's too late. Listen, can you hear that sound getting closer? While we were arguing, the sound of police sirens conveniently approached. As soon as Selena shouted, "This is bad, Christopher, let's run," they stood up, abandoned Ian, and dashed out the front door. I somehow managed to catch Ian before he hit the floor and immediately chased after them. Then I heard a commotion coming from outside. Damn! What's with all these people? We can't escape. When I went to the entrance, I saw that the house was surrounded by neighbors, leaving no gaps to escape through. I had left the windows slightly open for ventilation, so our voices must have leaked outside. Christopher and Selena were unable to escape, and the police arrived, promptly arresting them. "Dad, Mom, help us." I slapped away Christopher's outstretched hand as if to say, "Don't be ridiculous. You two, who only think of Ian as your tool, need to reflect deeply on your actions." They hung their heads dejectedly as the police took them away and put them in the patrol car. Later, during questioning, Christopher and Selena admitted to leaving Ava in the scorching sun. They both ended up spending time in dark rooms. All the money we had lent them was repaid in full. Since Christopher and Selena sold their house, they'll have nowhere to go when they're released. My husband and I returned home with Ava and Ian. We decided to raise our grandchildren ourselves. We live in a place rich in nature, and perhaps because of this, they are growing up healthy and strong. Ava, Ian, dinner's ready. Grandma's baked potatoes are so big. I love them. Both Ava and Ian eagerly devour the baked potatoes I make.